Greetings, friends. I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk about the passing of Eddie Van Halen. To me, they were like the Beatles are to some people. Uh, Came out with their first album when I was in high school. Like so many people say, Eruption was like nothing you had ever heard before. Um, I uh, I enjoyed the Sammy Hagar years more than the Roth years. I think that their sound became more polished and took more of a pop direction that Eddie wanted. It's kind of funny in a way that Jump uh, in a way it ushered in hair metal, but yet I didn't really consider them part of the hair metal thing, um, because they were had much more stability and craft than the majority of that, which kind of, yeah, that other stuff kind of came and went quicker than they did. I wish that they had uh, more recorded material than they came out with. There wasn't really, after the Hagar years, there wasn't much of anything except, I mean, of course, the Sharon album, and then which a lot of that's really good. And then there's the different kind of Truth, which is in 2012 was kind of hit and miss. If you haven't seen the Howard Stern tribute, he mentions that he was in contact with Sammy Hagar, and that Sammy was not wanting to really say anything publicly yet, but he revealed that he and Eddie had been texting this year, and I guess the main reason that they wanted to keep it quiet was that they didn't want the fans speculating and everything about a reunion. If I didn't already say it, I didn't realize I could still be affected by the death of a celebrity, but it's good to feel. Sometimes I think I try not to feel anything, but he was such a virtuoso and innovator. I remember in one of the interviews I saw with him that he said they had to change the way they write music because of the way, and now I'm adding in something else, but anyway, he said he used to see Jimmy Page holding one hand up in the air on a note, and that he realized you could be playing more while you're holding that note. And then he also pioneered that the thing where it kind of sounds like a violin, and a lot of people followed suit after that. And of course, he had his own line of amps and guitars. And there's also a video that the one I saw looked like it just came out like yesterday, but it's from like 1998, and he's taking a guy from MTV down into his in the studio. He talks about how he had to hide the studio behind a wall where he put a racquetball court on the other side, because you had to have building inspectors come and all this. And so the 5150 studio is completely hidden in his basement, because I guess it was against building code to have a studio at your house. And as long as he lived, I think everybody kept hoping that there would be more music. Although both lead singers are rather, I mean, Sammy can still hit most of the notes, but yeah, I mean, time goes on. My favorite thing from them is probably 5150, 1986, named after his home studio, and also as a reference to a section 5150 of the California Welfare and Institutions Code, where it's basically, I think it's having someone committed. It was their only album, I think it was the only album to hit number one on the Billboard chart, Billboard 200, surpassing the band's previous album, 1984, which had peaked at number 2, behind Michael Jackson's Thriller, which of course Eddie made the guest appearance on. I won't go into the lead singer stuff again, but except that back on their very first album with Roth, the producer suggested that Sammy Hagar would be a good match. So they went to work on the album in 1985. It would be finished in February of 86, just 1 month before its release. It was notable for the number of love songs and ballads, contrast of the straightforward rock stylings of the Roth era. Many called the new incarnation Van Hagar, a nickname so ubiquitous that, as Hagar points out in his book, Warner Brothers asked them to consider renaming the band as such. Bolstering criticism was the absence of Ted Templeman, and he had left to helm Roth's solo Eat 'Em and Smile. Don Landy, the producer on 5150, after serving as an engineer previously, and the production was quite a bit different. Eddie's guitar, previously high in the mix and frequently pushed to the left channel to simulate a live sound, now sat equal in the mix, and its overall sound had changed. This may have been his doing. He was not a fan of the live mix that Templeman created with the Roth band. I guess I wasn't either. Now that I think about it, I had never thought of it in that way. But and it was also the first Van Halen album to feature no instrumentals. Foreigner guitarist Mick Jones was also brought in as a producer after Warner Brothers denied the band full creative latitude. According to Jones, the Van Halen brothers were going through a particularly charged emotional relationship at the time. There were some crazy situations that went on there. Jones feels his biggest contribution was working with Hagar on his dynamic vocal performances. I remember on that Live Without a Net video, there's Sammy and them doing Only One Way to Rock, and so Sammy's playing the guitar on that with Eddie. They're both kind of doing lead, but Eddie's doing his thing, and I don't think there was many times where Hagar even bothered to play the guitar with Van Halen, with the exception of on a later album, Finish What You Started. he plays, I think it's lead and rhythm guitar on that. Moving on to some other facts about Van Halen. Eddie cannot read sheet music. From his first piano lessons at the age of 6, Eddie's penchant for musical performance was clear. He would painstakingly memorize his teacher's finger movements, developing his ear and playing until he could hear a record and replay it note for note. He claims that many years went by before anyone suspected he actually couldn't read sheet music at all. One thing I wanted to throw in was that when someone is such a genius, I think they could, if they could listen, they could have used a little bit of direction here and there. He obviously had a strong ego or strong personality, with the lead singers and with Michael Anthony, but what I would have suggested for him to do at one point is, he's such a great keyboardist that we didn't get to hear much of that. And I would have asked him to do an album's worth of material that were based on the keyboard, and then come back later and put in some of the guitar stuff, but not make it where that's the primary focus, just as an exercise for fun. That was one thing I kept up with them about, where I've pretty much divorced myself from like pop culture and caring, much about anything, although I'm kind of, some might say, devolving back into it to a certain extent. I'm really enjoying the podcast Talking Sopranos with Steve Sciarippa and Michael Imperioli. Although I haven't watched a full one yet, it's a little long-winded. I mostly like the part where they have a guest on. And then I'm also enjoying the son from The Sopranos and the daughter they're also doing a podcast called Pajama Pants. And it turns out they became friends and have stayed friends. And then there's this other guy on there who's a YouTube comedian, among other things. But it's very enjoyable, both of those, and also some other things that I'm enjoying that are not not the norm of what I have been watching and enjoying for a long time, which is the stuff to do with truth. But the point I was trying to veer off there too about was that I enjoyed hearing the back and forth with Eddie and Michael Anthony and Hagar, as there were these little fusses and feuds about, were they going to all play together again and all that kind of thing. But at one point I remember Eddie saying that Sammy Hagar and the Circle were out there acting like they're the other half of Van Halen. And he said, but I'm the other half. But, Sammy was the singer. They can find people to come close to that guitar. And, with Michael Anthony on bass, and for Eddie's part, he had written, co-written a lot of it, but these other bands that Hagar has been in that play the Van Halen music is, that was, it was what it is. Anyway, continuing, the band is listed in the Guinness Book of World Records. In the spring of 1983, Van Halen headlined the U.S. Festival in San Bernardino, California. They performed on Heavy Metal Day for the stratospheric fee of $1.5 million. The Guinness Book of World Records created an all-new category just for them, the highest-paid single appearance of a band. And that reminds me, what was so cool about them is they took the energy and the fabric of heavy metal, but they made it into something happy and fun. Like even on their song Running with the Devil, it's not really, it doesn't give you those kind of dark feelings like, Black Sabbath does or so many other bands. And that was what I always thought was so cool about him as well. Alex and Eddie are the only consistent members. Other members have included David Lee Roth, Michael Anthony, Sammy Hagar, Gary Cerrone, Mitch Malloy, Mark Stone, and Wolfgang Van Halen. I guess some of those are maybe the real early ones. There is some early Van Halen that you can find on YouTube, like before their first album. I'm hoping that there will be subsequent unreleased material from both incarnations. However, I kind of doubt there's much there. They haven't always been known as Van Halen. They started out as the Broken Combs. They later became the Space Brothers, the Trojan Rubber Company, and then Genesis. Upon finding out the latter name was already taken, they changed their name yet again to Mammoth. Finally, in 1974, the band officially landed on Van Halen, although both Daddy Longlegs and Van Hagar were also considered. Gene Simmons produced the band's first demo tape after radio DJ Rodney Bingenheimer saw the band perform at Gazzari's on the Sunset Strip. He invited Kiss co-lead Gene Simmons to their next show. Simmons went on to produce a Van Halen demo tape, which he later took to his management team, who rejected them. Though now regarded as one of the all-time best guitarists, Eddie Van Halen began on the drums. When the brothers started out together in the 1960s, Eddie played the drums while Alex was on guitar. Eddie only suggested they switch instruments after he found out his older brother had been secretly playing his drum set while he was at work. 1984 went 5 times platinum after only a year of release. And that's another thing of like how a band gets in your kind of in your tissue and in your heart. I mean, I remember every single one of these things. Their first album, the ones that came after that, then 1984, then 5150. And I was at different places in life for every one of those. And I was driving a school bus in San Antonio when I was going to this Bible college when 1984 came out, and there's a synthesizer sound in there it was exactly like a synthesizer sound on one of the arcade games that I used to go and enjoyed playing in the 80s. It was just one of those weird synchronistic, type things. 84 went 5 times platinum, stylized as the Roman numerals. Van Halen's 6th studio album garnered national praise. It was David Lee Roth's last album with the band until 2012. Okay, let's see. The album 5150 is named after a police code. I already mentioned that. A college student was expelled for writing an essay on Hot for Teacher. In 2011, Oakland University student Joseph Corlett penned a thesis about his professor based on the racy song. When the school took action, 56-year-old Corlett sued them for $2.2 million, claiming they violated his right to free speech. I heard someone say one time that this song Jump was based on a suicide, and therefore it was, negative, or that was not good. And of course suicide is not good, but songs have to come from somewhere. And that was like taking a kind of a light approach. Not that the song is even about that, really. That's just where the inspiration came from. I think some of the evil things that people try to ascribe to rock at times, I think is a little bit, I think it's not accurate. Sammy Hagar wanted to name the band's 9th album Fuck, wanting to address America's hot button issue of the time, censorship. Hagar had hopes of including a curse word in his band's upcoming album title. In the end, the F word became an acronym for their final title, For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. The guitar term brown sound originated from Alex's drum playing. Eddie's unique guitar tone has garnered significant repute in the rock and roll world. In one interview, he said his goal was to sound like Alex's snare, warm, big, majestic, and brown. This description clicked with guitar players, and the term is widely used today. That also reminds me, I remember reading in Guitar Magazine one time that part of the way Eddie got his sound was that he boiled his strings. To generate the intro to Pound Cake, Eddie held a power drill to his guitar pickup. Apparently, the scenario was a complete fluke. A maintenance worker accidentally left the tool in the studio, and upon picking it up, Eddie realized it was in the exact same key as the song. He uses that very drill every time Van Halen plays Pound Cake live. Jump was Van Halen's only number one. Well, that's kind of funny. Jump from 1984 was a number one single, but yet 5150 was a number one album. Their most famous song, the synth-heavy pop hit Jump, supposedly took only one day to finish. It leapt to the top of the Billboard Hot 100, earned Van Halen a Grammy nomination, and was listed by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum as one of the 500 songs that shaped rock and roll. Eddie's listed as an inventor on 3 U.S. patents, the most exciting being a supporting board which attaches to the back of a guitar, holding it parallel to the floor during a performance, the perfect position for his famous finger tapping techniques. Being that I'm not a musician, I'm not understanding exactly what the purpose of that is. I guess so you can hold it, I can level it completely flat. And we'll take another look at some other, a few more facts, unless this could be a complete ditto of the, what I just, no, stuff's a little bit different. They were born in a town in the Netherlands, which I can't pronounce. His father was a band leader whose clarinet work can be heard on the song Big Bad Bill is Sweet William Now on the 1982 album Diver Down. Eddie began his music career by taking piano lessons. Often appears uncredited on other musicians' works, most famously on Michael Jackson's Beat It. A recovering alcoholic who battled throat cancer in 2000. And so I guess most people know he left the country to have some procedure done that I was under the impression that it had gone away completely, but evidently it hadn't. But that bought him 20 years, so not too bad in that way. Alex is about 2 years older than Eddie. Neither could speak much English when the family arrived in the United States in the 1960s. Well, that's funny. I never, usually if English is their second language, there's usually an accent or like a noticeable accent, but I didn't really ever pick that up with him. Perhaps being so talented musically figures into how you speak as well. The instrumental Respect the Wind from the Twister soundtrack features Alex on keyboard, his only appearance on an album outside of Van Halen. An ordained minister, he officiated at the wedding of his brother and Janie Lazuski in 2009. He likes to use the biggest drumsticks available. And if you want to look up Eddie's second wife, Janie, on YouTube, you can find some stuff. She's been a stunt woman, done a little bit of acting, and just quite a few accomplishments in show business. And the gender thing is obvious on the wives more so than the men. So I think that is the majority of what I wanted to say, and just take a few minutes to remember this icon to so many of us, and he will be missed. And that's just life. And sometimes you have to be. It's like you get reminded of these things over and over again. You kind of almost forget sometimes. But at any rate, thank you for joining me, and I may talk to you soon.